Okay. All right. So we're doing Concilia. And so we'll start with the physical and psychological. Let me get her thing. So she had mentioned that, just a second. Let's just see what she says. She said better, better. So she's feeling better physically and she's feeling better psychologically. So let's
Uh-huh.
see. So overall in the physical health, she went up like 7.6 points. If we throw in happiness also as a subscale and include it, she goes up actually 9.2 points in her physical health. Do you, so what she says agrees with these scores. Do you agree with it? Did you also notice an improvement in her physical health?
Yes, yes, I noticed an improvement because she was internally displaced according to the status that she came in with. She came from a community that was war torn and was really going through a lot of things. And being a young lady, she was kind of forced to marry his late husband's brother. So that was the current condition she was living in before she came, and had lots of difficulties with that, with the husband's brother and that relationship. Also coming from that war area, her physical health and mental health was not quite good. But as we went on, we were talking, exchanging, meeting in the court, a lot of things changed. She used to open up to us and tell us some of her difficulties. But finally, when we spoke, she began to dream again. She began to put a vision in place of what she wanted to do. Like I once said, most of them had lost the sense of dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
Dreams again. So Concilia started dreaming again and started looking good.
Mm-hmm. Um, so I'm just looking at, and next time I will have this up. Um, but so her husband, her first husband died,
Uh-huh.
and then she was forced to marry um, her brother-in-law.
Yeah, those are some traditional practices that are still common in some communities. If you cannot stand your ground to walk away with that, especially when you have kids and responsibilities, you'll be forced to take care of those responsibilities by yourself if you don't succumb to their proposals.
Mm.
So she went into that because of the children,
Yeah, it says
and
she has like 4 children.
yes,
So and the other thing is you're going to confirm ages for me for all 10. Okay.
yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't put that in.
That's okay. I have a note here to ask you if I don't get it within a week or so. So check in with you and just to remind you. Um, all right, but you do, even though she's still in this situation, her physical health has still improved.
Yes, something like when she first came, it was weighing on her,
Mm-hmm.
particularly the war situation. When
Mm-hmm.
she relocated, she found a community within the core, and she found some kind of peace and the agendas, the lessons that were being taught
Mm-hmm.
really helped her. For example, stress management. Um, management was taken over and over again, trust cycle, things like that. She began to pull out of some kind of unsafe relationships, and that really helped her.
Do
Though
you
still in that marriage.
Mhm. Do you know how long it was from the time her first husband died to the time that she, had to marry her brother-in-law?
No, no, no.
Mm.
I've not taken time to ask that, but that's what she told me.
Mm-hmm.
That's been one of our greatest challenges.
Okay, I'm just wondering. So then her psychological health, she went up about 4.2, 4.3 points overall. But if I include optimism and happiness as a subscale, she still goes up about 4. So didn't really, including her optimism and happiness, didn't really affect her overall psychological health. And so, and we'll get into some specifics when we go through the overview with her. But, anytime we have either a stay, meaning there's no increase, or an increase, I would call that a success. So did you also notice a mindset change or a, psychological sense of betterment for her as well as her physical health?
I would say there was a great improvement in her psychological health, because when she first came, when we were in the first location of meetings, she used to get so touchy, so easily offended, so worked up, and sometimes when the court members throw something to her, she gets so mad and she will not speak to anybody until she leaves.
Mm-hmm.
But when we got about 4 months to right down to about the 11th month, everything changed. She could bear with one another. She could cope with some of the slangs, and there was no other time that she refused to speak to anybody.
Did she ever? Do you know if there was anything specific that helped her? Did she ever mention what helped her move forward over the course of the year?
No, I didn't ask. I didn't ask that.
Mm-hmm. So when and I might have already said this, but I'm just going to say it again, just in case I didn't. When you meet with everybody and go over their EQIs, the one question is that you want to ask everybody is, what was it, what was it going through this past year that made a difference? In what ways did this program help you to move forward, right? And also, was there one thing that if they could identify that was just like, the aha moment for them where they were like, okay, that type of thing. This is really making a huge difference in my life. Sometimes people will have an aha moment, sometimes they won't, but I'm just trying to get a sense of how this program affected them in a positive way or even in a negative way. We always think in positive, of course, but, if there are any negative things that happened with this program, we should know about them. Was there anything also that they didn't like or that affected them negatively? I kind of think that, we ask that question at every session, and I think something would have come up. But you just want to ask them, how has this program changed your life, type of thing, in what ways, and if they can identify one thing where all of a sudden it hit home to them, that would be great. So, all right, I'm going to go over to the overview chart. And, in the beginning to now, she went up. So when she started, she was at about an 87, right? So remember, the norm is anywhere from 90 to 110. So she's just slightly, under that. If we look at the overall composites, just a second, sorry. If we look at the overall composites, right, self-perception, 93, self-expression, 90, interpersonal, 95, decision-making, 78, stress management, 88. So, 88, she's not too much out of whack, it looks like, on in the appearance of the 5, right? She kind of looks like she's somewhat balanced, and then her happiness score, of course, is 80, which is pretty low, right? So, decision making at 78 is pretty low. So, we want to look at what's going on a little bit more detail. When she started, let's look at those 4 subscales that we always look at, which is self-regard was 83. Her assertiveness was 112, right? Problem solving was 81. And her optimism was 113. So if I look at that sense of her optimism at 113, self-regard at 83, there's something that's keeping her hopeful. Her stress tolerance is low. Her impulse control is low. Her it's just, and if I look at this, I'm thinking for some reason she has some hope. Her, and then if you look at her pursuit of meaning, her self-actualization is 109. So if I'm going to think about this woman, I'm thinking that she has purpose in her life, and that purpose is giving her hope for the future. And if you tell me that, and now her assertiveness is really high, right? It's 112, which is spiked in relation to the other subscales in that self-expression composite, which, knowing her circumstances, it kind of makes sense to me, right? Because her husband died, she's left with 4 children, and now the cultural boundaries or constraints or whatever, or protocols, I guess is the better word for it, are saying, okay, now you need to marry his, your husband who passed, his brother. So now you're enforced, she's mandated basically to marry this man, which she doesn't want to, I'm sure, but she does for the sake of the children because that's what's expected of her, right? So it makes sense to me that her assertiveness is out of whack. She's kind of holding it in. So if she has to express herself or whatever, she's probably doing it in a not so balanced way. All right. So, and her happiness score 80, it makes complete sense. Yet she has purpose. And I do wonder, if she didn't have children, would she still have that sense of purpose and that hope for the future? Are her children mandating for her, pushing her every day to get up and find purpose? Every day she's getting up because her purpose in life is to be a mother, and every day getting up hoping for the better future for her children. Is that not her bridge, her children, so many times, and I'm going to include myself in that if it were not for my children, I would not get out of bed in the morning. Now, of course, I had my faith to rely on and his strength. So it wasn't my own strength. So, I would pray every morning for him to give me the strength I needed to do what I needed to do for the sake of my children. Do you know what I mean? So I just kind of, I see this, this commonality, and I see it a lot, really. And I'm going to make a note of that just for myself, because I'd like to look at all of these, as well as the other ladies I've worked with, in relation to if they have children, and if they don't, really, where do they fall? It may make a difference, it may not. I'm just guessing here, So then going to the mid test, her total EI is still at 87. That's okay. She hasn't gone down. She hasn't moved forward. Perhaps things have been balancing out a little bit. I don't know. If I go under balancing EQi and I look at the 5 composites, she's at 93, 86, 78, 79, and 106. Okay, so right here, and she's definitely out of whack. She's not balanced, right? Her self-perception score really remained the same. Self-expression went down, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because her assertiveness was so spiked that it needed to come down. So this could be why. I haven't gone back to the overview to look at the subscales in detail yet. Her interpersonal, right? It went from a 95 to a 78. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, I got to look at those other subscales within this composite to see why did they go down. Decision making basically is at a standstill. It went up 1 point. To me, that's a standstill. It doesn't, stress management went up. So that's again another, let's see what's going on. Happiness goes up to 101. Okay. So let's go to the overview. So under the overview, I see that her self-regard went up to 90 from 83. Self-actualization just went down a little to a 107. Her emotional self-awareness, her ability to understand her own emotions actually went down. And which says to me basically that she's really not, that actually maybe validates my initial assumption that her children are pulling her through. Her purpose in life are for her children, right? So her pursuit of meaning is still there, but her ability to understand herself goes down. So at this point, it might be that, you know what, it doesn't matter. I don't care about me. I don't need to understand my own emotions. I respect myself. But really, I really need to move forward for the sake of my children. Let me look down to optimism. Her optimism goes down to 108, right? So it isn't necessarily a bad thing, but her stress tolerance goes up to 91. So she's handling the stress a little better, it looks like. Flexibility goes up, right? From a 81 to a 116. Her impulse control increases. Her reality testing goes down a little. Her problem solving goes right down to a 70. So it says to me, all right, she might be, she's still in it. She's hanging in. She's hanging tough. She's still positive with a good outlook on the future because she's got 4 children. There has to be hope. She has to provide hope. She is probably exemplifying this. She is probably living hope for her. Actually, let me rephrase that. She's probably living hope, actual living hope, right? For her 4 children. She is giving her children this hope. So then her impulse control goes up to, like I said, to 96. Reality testing goes down a little bit. Problem solving at a 70, right? She's probably a little bit frustrated, but she's still in it. She's believing in the process, but maybe she doesn't have a lot of faith in it. She's like, okay, so they told me about this process, or that, I got to figure out, how to solve some issues where emotions aren't involved or whatever. Okay, I'll bite type of thing. I'll believe, I don't have any faith in it, but I believe that, it's there. I don't know. It's a guess. Her social responsibility goes down from a 94 to an 87. Her empathy takes a hit, right? She goes from a 78, from a 99 to a 78. Interpersonal goes down to 81 from a 94. And her interpersonal composite really goes from a 78 to overall to a 95. Independence goes down to an 81. Her assertiveness goes down to a 91, which is good, right? So if you look at her self-expression composite, she's actually, with those 3 subscales, she's actually 81. She's actually she's balanced on paper. She looks balanced, right? So she's struggling a little. Okay, so to go into the post, right? This is a year later. Where are we? So her overall EI goes to a 97. She's up 10 points.
Yeah.
Looking at the balancing EQi, the 5 composites, she improves by 4 points under self-perception. She improves by 6 points under self-expression. She goes down just 1 point in interpersonal, but I think that's okay because I think she's more balanced, so we'll see. Decision making, look at that. She actually goes up 20 points. She finally got it, or at least she's getting it. At least she's getting it. She understands that she has to make decisions without emotion, Or, I mean, I understand what this says. It talks about making decisions and choices uh, without a unrealistic or without a reactionary um, emotional reaction, right? What this could be showing for her, and I don't know, but again, this is something I'm guessing at, is that she wasn't making decisions with any emotion. Thus the reason for a lower decision making score.
Okay.
Her husband died. She had to get married again for the sake of the children. So her stress score was at 88. It's now at 100. So instead of dealing with the situation, she just accepted it, and she just started making decisions without any emotion. You can have too much or too little. You want it balanced, right? So I don't know. We're gonna go back to the overview, and we're gonna look at these subscales. Her happiness levels off at 97. That's a good score, I think. Her stress management goes to 100, right? So let's go back to the overview and let's see what's going on here. Self-regard. She went up 33 points, 116. Her self-actualization goes down 23. Does that concern me? It doesn't, if it's because her pursuit of meaning, her purpose in life, has now changed. It has gone from her children to herself. I don't know if this is happening, Seraphin, but it could be. This is a question for her. Were her children this major purpose in life, and now is she understanding that she has to have her own sense of purpose? And if so, that's a good score because she's bringing it back into balance. Has she ever had any conversations with you about, her children being important in her life? They're her bridge. She's living for her children or anything like that.
I was going to say that from what you just said, that her focus was kind of shifting from her children to herself. I was going to say that was kind of true because when she first came, she had not paved out a way for herself. She had not decided what she would be doing. But this during the post, that was getting to about December or thereabout, she came telling me she wanted to learn a trade.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. I heard what you said, but I didn't really understand what you said. What was the last part of what you said?
She told me she wanted to learn a trade so that she can be independent and could generate income for herself and for the children. She wanted to enroll into tailoring and dressmaking, which she had not said before the post EQi. So I'm kind of confirming that she was kind of getting into purpose.
And so doesn't her self-regard spike of 116, even though it's unbalanced with the other two subscales, doesn't it make sense, right? So this is a good thing. She's now realizing, okay, wait a second here. I'm important. I have a new sense of self-confidence and respect. And she actually went down in understanding her own emotions. So I think that makes sense too, because before, I think she was working, she understood who she was and her emotions. And I almost think again that she was suppressing her emotions, so that now that she knows that she shouldn't, that now she's really re-understanding herself. She respects herself, but she's still like, okay, wait, I got to understand my emotions and how they work within me outside perhaps of my children. So this is kind of a new role. She's not just a mother. She's also, and she's not just a wife, which has been, shoved on her, down her throat basically, but she's actually a person and a woman, an independent woman, right? So it's almost like she found this new role, and now she's just like, okay, I don't know what to do with it yet. I'll figure it out though, right? Under her self-expression composite, she went up 10 points with being able to be constructive when she expresses herself. So she went to a 95. So if you look at the other score, the emotional self-awareness, she's at an 86. Those are actually in balance, which is interesting. So she actually, you could see she's trying. She is starting to understand herself. Her assertiveness actually goes down 14 points, which is great because she's now, it looks like she's balanced, right? Independence goes up 14 points. So she's basically balanced here. So it looks good. Then you go to the interpersonal composite, right? So you see her social responsibility went up 14 points. Her empathy went down, actually, 8 points. And her interpersonal relationships, again, goes down. And you know why? Because right now, she is in the cohort. She wants to be, I think this is a woman who is finding herself, creating a sense of purpose, and now understands that she's part of the solution to the crap that's going on in her community. And this is like, wow, you know what I mean? Whenever, what I see is whenever someone starts to take notice of themselves and saying, you know what, I'm going to focus a little bit on me because I need to, it's important. The sense of empathy goes down because, and you know what, it comes a point where you're just like, okay, and she's still within the norm. She's at 91. She still falls within the norm, the average norm. I think this is okay. It makes sense to me. Also that her mutually satisfying relationships goes down because I think she's just tabled that. I think she's realized that I don't know about that one, to be honest with you. I don't have a sense for it, so I can't really speak to it. However, I'm really not concerned about it. I do want to look under balancing EQIs a little bit more after we're done here, and maybe that'll shed some light onto it. So under decision making, look at that. It goes up 20 points. Why? Well, her impulse control actually goes up 40 points. Her reality testing goes down, though. Her problem solving goes up to 9. It's interesting to me. I don't know really what's going on here. This is a discussion. This is, what's going on here. What I see here is less frustration, her understanding and less frustration, greater trust in the process, greater trust in her emotions, greater ability to control her emotions, maybe too much right now. But as she's understanding her own emotions and she's asserting her emotions better, she is, I think, was why her impulse control is a little spiked, but and her reality testing, seeing things as they really are, went down. It doesn't bother me. I'm not too concerned about this, but we can't, and I always say this, we can't rest on our laurels. That's why we're having our meeting next week, and not next week, I apologize, in next month, next July. And I'm gonna specifically look at each cohort's decision-making scores for when I build that session to see what I really need to hit home. So I'll do that, at a later date. So her stress management, right? Flexibility goes up 30 points. Stress tolerance goes up 13. Her optimism goes down to 10. That's okay. She's still within that 90 to 110 range. Her happiness goes up 17 points. This says to me that this woman is seeing life in a more realistic way. She's actually seeing herself in a more realistic way and in a new role as a person who has a voice, who could actually have purpose not only in her own self and her own life personally, but also how to manage that in relation to her purpose as a mother, possibly even tackling the or battling this idea that she's a wife to a man that, I don't know, maybe she's come to respect, appreciate, and love. I don't know. That's a question for her. Her sense of happiness is she's happier. Why is she happier? It could be because she is happy to have found herself again, happy to understand these roles within herself again. Come here, sit, and that sort of thing. So let's just go into balancing EQi, and let's see what we find. So under self-perception, she's unbalanced. There's a spike in her self-regard. But everything else under that first grouping is balanced. I'm not concerned because I now understand her better, and I understand that she has a new sense of self here, and she's found herself. Do you know what I mean? And then again, and then you look down, you see self-regard and optimism are a little unbalanced. Go under self-expression, and she's balanced there. Interpersonal, there's that sense of social responsibility, which is spiked in relation to those others in the third grouping. Again, I'm just not concerned about it because I think after a while, things are going to balance themselves out. I'm going to skip decision making for now. I'm going to go to stress management. Stress management, there's a lot of things going on. There's the self-regard, which I'm not going to worry about. There's the flexibility, problem solving. Her stress management, these three groupings, are just not balanced really. Okay? Go back to decision making. Flexibility spikes as well as self-regard. I don't care about self-regard now that I understand where she's coming from and everything that's going on. And the only thing that is not balanced is the flexibility part, right? So I'm gonna table this right now, and I'm gonna focus on our next session in regards to decision making. And I'm gonna note here that I have to somehow include flexibility in this session, right? And getting them to understand the importance of being flexible and adapting, really, when it comes to making choices or decisions. And then in 6 months' time, like I said, we're gonna reevaluate and see if there's any changes. So I'm just gonna put her on hold. I'm not really concerned with anything except I want to focus in on decision making. So I think that's it. Now, do you have any questions or any comments on this, on her?
Not really questions. My interest is that at least there's been a move from 87 pre, the pre, the mid, and the post.
Mm-hmm.
So it's encouraging that things have changed with her. She has improved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right.